Our story continues and we see the Qingchang sect's greatest warrior looking at the thousands of snakes in the pit. He believes the snakes have been collected for research by the Nine Demon School. The warrior wonders if this cave was originally the base of the Nine Demon School. Meanwhile, the Emi sect disciples are panicking. They are afraid of what will attack at any moment. Jianghu then displays her leadership by trying to calm the disciples down. Jianghu yells for them to stop panicking. She says the assassin won't make any rash movements since he's injured. The most important thing is to not scatter but gather. Wool knows he's racing against time due to his injuries, so he decides to make a move. But Jianghu senses something is wrong as he inches away. She turns quickly to defend. She is going head-to-head with Wool. Jianghu gets a hold of Wool's hand, so he tries to attack with his other hand. He aims at Jianghu's eye and sends 2 fingers through. She shrieks in pain, but that's all Wool was able to do. Wool was caught off guard by Young and now has her sword running through his side. Wool can tell Young has some great senses because of the perfect placement of her attack. Young is used to people complimenting her. Young then asks Wool to surrender, but Wool laughs and has something else in mind. He tries to attack Young, but she saw it coming. Wool gets up and pulls the sword out of his side. He looks back at Young and asks if she will spare him if he surrenders. Young hesitates and Wool says he knows she won't. He says she wouldn't have killed the rest of the Blood Shadow group if that were the case. Young then asks Wool how much he knows. He says he knows that Ran, the Abyss of 9 Calamities, is connected to everything. Not wanting any information to be leaked, Jianghu demands, Young kill Wool now. Young takes a second and says, although she is not fond of her master either, she has to avenge her fiancé, Wu Gun. Wool knows facing Young head-on is suicide. But before he tries to fall back, he's blasted with a ball of energy. Jianghu knows this is very bad for the Emi sect, so she tries to finish him herself. But the greatest warrior is not going to allow it and tells her to get out of the way. Jianghu tries to save the Emi sect one more time and says the assassin must be killed before he pulls any sorcery. The greatest warrior says he's not worried about that. He crouches down to talk to Wool and asks why he did it. He says even an assassin should have the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. Wool reveals to the greatest warrior that he was kidnapped and brought to the cave when he was 14. He didn't have the luxury of distinguishing between right and wrong. Wool says as someone who was raised to be an assassin, he didn't have a choice. The greatest warrior notices Wool isn't displaying any empathy. Wool's eyes are filled with such malice, and the greatest warrior feels he could have been a magnificent asset if he was raised right. The greatest warrior pulls out the tube. He's found the request to kill Wu Gun. The greatest warrior asks Wool who the requester is. Wool says he has an idea. He then asks the greatest warrior if he stopped them from killing him because he's also thinking of the same person. The greatest warrior looks back and Jianghu is sick to her stomach. The Qingchang sect disciples come running and ask if their master needs help. The greatest warrior asks Ming what happened to the others. Ming says they didn't make it because they fell into the assassin's trap. Upset, the warrior knows what he has to do next. He gets up and says to Wool, a quick death is too extravagant for him. He grabs Wool by the foot and begins dragging him. He wants Wool to die while feeling pain greater than hell. It's the least bit of atonement he can give to those he's killed. Atonement, Wool thinks to himself. He wants to know who will compensate him for the 7 years he has lost. The greatest warrior has dragged Wool all the way to the base of the cave with Wool's foot in his hand. He stares down at the pit of snakes. The greatest warrior gives Wool one last chance and asks if he still has no intention to atone. All Wool can do is laugh now. The greatest warrior knows what he must do. He tells Wool he has no right to live in this world, and then he throws Wool down into the pit of snakes. He wants Wool to die a painful death while atoning for his sins. The greatest warrior turns to the others and says they will now exit the cave. He wants the entrance sealed so that no one may ever use this place again. Wool was left to die alone in the snake pit. The snakes waste no time and begin biting Wool. But as the starved snakes take their turn, Wool is not fazed. Wool begins hissing back at the snakes and grabs a hold of one. Wool shows the snakes who's in charge and bites off one of the snakes' heads. Time passes, and Wool spends years in the cave alone. Wool was able to make it out of the snake pit and learn the martial art techniques of the Qingchang sect and the Emi sect from the books left on the dead bodies. Wool has spent so much time underground with the snakes that he adopted many of their characteristics. Wool is completely transformed with lighter skin and hair. His body went through many changes with his new snake-only diet. Wool now awaits his opportunity to avenge himself above ground. In Batang, we see a man being thrown out of the top floor of a brothel. He was thrown out by Wool, who has made it out of the cave. Wool is asking to be left alone for 3 days, and this is clearly upsetting the boss. She doesn't understand who this man is, or where he came from. One of her guards tries threatening Wool for throwing a martial artist from the Sapphire House in Batang out of the window. But Wool does not care, and attacks both of the guards with his soul-reaping thread. The woman is intimidated, as Wool has just subdued the guards with a flick of the wrist. She doesn't recall there being such a master in Sichuan. She now sees Wool as no ordinary man. The boss asks for Wool's forgiveness, and says he can stay as long as he wants. She will provide Wool with whatever he needs, and begs him to release her guards. Wool takes a second to think, but all the boss can think about is how serene his eyes are. To her, it feels like she's facing an enormous snake from the rainforest. Wool says he just needs 3 days. He releases the guards and says he would really appreciate it if no one disturbed him. The boss agrees to Wool's terms and asks for his name. He tells the boss his name is Wool. The 3 days pass and Wool is prepared to exit the brothel. When he left the cave, he didn't have any clothes, so the boss at the brothel was kind enough to lend him some. They not only provided him with a set of clothes, but they also gave him a box of lunch for when he gets hungry. As Wool leaves, the boss is still in disbelief as to who she just met. On Wool's journey, he takes a break to enjoy his meal and hide out from the rain. He's admiring nature, as it's one thing he's missed for most of his life. Wool reflects on how 7 whole years have passed. His past is not something he will ever forget, but he realizes if he doesn't break free from the past, he probably won't be able to move forward. And in order to break free from his past, the Qingchang sect and the Emi sect have to pay for ruining his life. Wool thinks he'll be able to obtain more information about the sects if he heads to Chengdu. As Wool is on his break, we see a group of people approaching. They are also trying to find refuge from the rain. Once they get under the roof, they begin bickering about being wet. And after blaming each other, they spot Wool sitting there watching them. They are surprised to see someone else up in the mountains. The woman immediately compliments Wool on how handsome he is. Then the man she's with says she should be thanking him for getting them lost. But this annoys her, so she tells him to shut up. She turns back to Wool and says it must be fate that they all ended up staying under the same roof together. She introduces herself as Ranju, and Wool introduces himself as well. Ranju is enamored and annoys her counterpart, as she always goes crazy whenever she meets a handsome man. The man introduces himself as Dayoshi, and the monk introduces himself as Hugh. Ranju asks Wool where he's headed, and he says he's going to Chengdu. Coincidentally, Ranju and the others are also headed to Chengdu. She thinks it would be a great idea if they traveled together, but Wool is unsure. They are a peculiar combination of people at first sight, but they are all masters that can team up at any time. He wonders if Ranju is their central figure, because it doesn't really seem like she's the leader. Wool is willing to take the chance and accepts. He believes there must be some other powerful order that keeps them together, and he wants to know more. They begin their trip together, and find a crew to board with. Dayoshi says they will leave in 1 hour. Ranju has to complain about something and says rice cargo ships are uncomfortable. She loves to make Dayoshi's blood boil. Ranju then turns to Wool and asks why he's headed to Chengdu. Wool says he's meeting with an acquaintance. Ranju wants to know more and Wool says he's meeting with people who owe him a debt. She asks if Wool is in debt and he says no, he is owed a debt. Wool then asks why she's headed to Chengdu. Ranju says she's going to Chengdu to do business. Wool says he doesn't see any merchandise with her. Ranju laughs and says, "You can sell what you can't see." Dayoshi then interrupts and asks Wool what clan he is from. Wool says he isn't part of a clan. They are surprised to hear that, and Wool asks if that's a problem. Dayoshi says no, but is then left wondering who Wool is. As they're on the water, everything seems normal and peaceful. People are conversing and enjoying the company of others. Wool takes it all in after being isolated for so long. But his peace is disrupted when Ranju wants his attention. She wants to know what he was staring at. She says he had such a sentimental look on his face. Wool tells her to go away if she's going to keep talking nonsense. Ranju laughs it off and tells Wool he's playing with her heart like a fiddle. Dayoshi and Hugh watch, and Hugh asks if they should intervene. Dayoshi says the almighty blood spider is not going to be bewitched by a man. All her actions are calculated. She sure is playing cuter for a woman with the temperament as malicious as a spider. Aside from that, Dayoshi says Wool is quite suspicious. Then the current gets stronger and disrupts their voyage. They look out and see an oncoming boat. It's a boat filled with pirates looking to steal their rice. One of the sailors yells for everyone to arm themselves. They are in quite the predicament. But then Dayoshi asks the sailor if he needs help. The sailor asks Dayoshi who he is, and Dayoshi says it doesn't matter who he is, it only matters what he can do. Then the monk Hugh jumps off the boat and lands on the pirates' boat. The pirates are a little thrown off at first, but they rush to attack Hugh. Hugh takes them on all by himself, leaving the sailors and his mates shocked. This is nothing Dayoshi hasn't seen before. He tells the sailor that he owes him 500 yangs. Hugh finishes off all the pirates and hops back onto the cargo ship. Dayoshi thanks him for his work, and Hugh says to have Ranju do it next time. Dayoshi laughs it off and says he'd be relieved if she didn't go crazy on him just for asking. They look around to see where she is, and she is still trying to get Wool's attention. Ranju asks Wool to stay with them in Chengdu, but Wool says he's more comfortable alone. As Dayoshi and Hugh receive their pay, they can't believe Ranju was still trying. But then Dayoshi concludes, there's no way Wool is average. A normal person would be scared in this situation. He believes only someone who has gone through pandemonium can have such eyes. Ranju tries one last time and gives Wool her puppy eyes. Wool doesn't know what she's doing, and Ranju says she can't believe he's turning her down. Wool says he's not into poisonous roses, no matter how beautiful they are. Her tears quickly stop because she's glad Wool called her beautiful. That's enough for me, she says. Wool thinks these people are vagabonds who sell their strength for money. Just now, they showed just enough strength for rumors of their skills to be spread throughout Chengdu. He wonders if that means a conflict large enough to require vagabonds has occurred in Chengdu. He doesn't believe that the Emi sect and the Qingchang sect would allow any sort of conflict to occur in Chengdu. But then he thinks, what if their circumstances aren't very good? He remembers his last moments with the Qingchang sect and the Emi sect. Wool wants to force them to atone the way he was forced to. They finally dock the boat and are ready to head to Chengdu. Dayoshi says they have to reach Chengdu by morning and asks Wool what his plan is. Wool says he will just stay here for the night. Ranju is upset and asks Wool if he's sure he can't go with them. Wool says he has something he has to prepare by himself. He provides her with a bit of hope and says he'll contact them when he reaches Chengdu. Ranju makes Wool promise, and he does. They can finally head off and leave Wool. Wool makes his way into the town and enters a lodge. Immediately upon entering, Wool receives some looks. He's greeted and asked if he's there for a meal or lodging. Wool says he's there for both and wants his meal first. Wool's meal is brought to him while a group of men question his clothing from afar. As Wool tries to enjoy his meal, he is interrupted by a man. This man introduces himself as Yang, the chief escort of the 9 Treasures Escort Corps. Jiang then asks Wool why he's wearing women's clothing if he's a man. Jiang says he made a bet with his comrades that he would find out. Wool says it's a shame that you just lost your money. Jiang doesn't back down and says he can't tell if Wool is telling the truth. Jiang's comrades dared him to strip Wool so everyone can know for sure. As Jiang falls for the peer pressure, Wool flicks his chopstick right into Jiang's eye. Jiang's comrades get nervous as Jiang is in tears. Jiang can't believe he just got stabbed in the eye because of a joke. But this was a result of peer pressure. Wool decides since Jiang can't see what's in front of him anyway, he'll just take his other eye as well. Jiang's comrades finally try to back him up, but Wool loads up with more chopsticks. Wool fires off the chopsticks and takes out the bullies. He says they needed to take responsibility for their actions. Later on, in the city of Chengdu, we see Ranju and the others. They notice that half the people roaming the streets are carrying a weapon. Ranju says this is the perfect opportunity for them. Hugh says one's misfortune is fortune for them. What could be more tragic than this, he asks. This annoys Ranju, and she says she doesn't want to hear that kind of talk from him. Why not, Hugh asks. Ranju replies and asks, who do you think among us is the most money-crazed? Dayoshi, he quickly responds. Dayoshi tells them to stop with their nonsense. They reach their destination, and Ranju is happy to see her captain Muriang. Muriang calls Ranju his vice-captain and says she's right on time. Hugh and Dayoshi also greet the captain, as they haven't seen him in quite some time. Muriang greets them back. The four of them sit at a table, and Dayoshi says he was just in need of money after taking too long of a break. Muriang asks, "Isn't that why we've all come together?" Dayoshi says he must ask, "Are we really going to meddle in this matter?" Muriang asks, "Why is it burdensome? Then get out," he says. Dayoshi nervously laughs and says, "Don't say that." "Who said anything about that?" he asks. Renju then asks if it's because of the Qingchang sect and the Emi sect. Dayoshi then asks, "Doesn't everyone know they've been in conflict with each other for 7 years?" "That's right," Muriang answers. Muriang says no one knows the reason, but they've had many disputes for the past several years, ranging from clashes between martial artists to an all-out battle. The conflict between the two greatest sects of Sichuan naturally led to a split in all of Jianghu and Sichuan. Muriang believes they will have a massive clash soon. Then Ranju intervenes and says she wonders why they are fighting. Vice Captain Muriang says that reason isn't important. What's important is that an opportunity for him to fulfill his dream has come true. Later on, we see Wool leaving the lodge. The owner of the lodge remembers Wool's actions and gets afraid. He hopes Wool will leave peacefully. Wool approaches the owner and asks who here knows best about the internal affairs of Sichuan. The owner asks for clarification on what Wool means by internal affairs. Wool says he wants to know the situation between the sects. The owner says Wool should visit the workshop for that information. More specifically, the Fire Dragon Room. It is a sect created through the gathering of Sichuan's artisans long ago. Since they've been doing business with all the sects of Sichuan for a long time, they'll gladly answer your questions if you buy a weapon from them first. Wool makes his way to the workshop. He sees a man yelling and asking his worker what he thinks he's doing. "Who said you could use a hammer?" the man asks. He yells, "I told you not to ever use a hammer in the workshop," and he kicks his worker in the back of the head. "Just do the chores you've been assigned," he says. His worker turns to him, but then the man asks the worker what he's looking at. He demands his worker to go to the back and do chores until he calls him back. He's forbidden from entering for the time being. Then the man realizes Wool saw that whole interaction. He asks Wool what he has come to purchase, but Wool wants to know what that worker did wrong. The man says that's so true. He heard he is a descendant of the Tang clan, but he keeps trying to use the hammer without permission. "Are descendants of the Tang clan not allowed to use hammers?" Wool asks. The man then asks Wool if this is his first time in Sichuan. Wool responds and says you could say that. The man begins to say the Tang clan fell to ruin. It was because they had stood on the demon cult side long ago. Because of that, they were forced to close their doors by someone titled the strongest in history. And the clan rapidly shriveled up and was ruined in the eyes of the Sichuan sects. The Tang clan is a renegade that betrayed the Sichuan Jianghu. That's why no workshop ever passes down their secret techniques to anyone related to the Tang clan. They're afraid that the same history would be repeated. So the descendant pays for the sins of the ancestor, he says. "Who told them to stand on the demon cult's side?" the man asks. "It's the price the Tang clan chose of their own accord," he says. The man then asks Wool again what he came to purchase. Wool says he came to purchase a flying sword. "Follow me," the man says. All weapons made in the workshop are displayed in the back. As they walk to the back, Wool asks if the man has had a lot of orders coming in lately. The man starts laughing and says, after the Emi sect and the Qingchang sect started fighting full scale, the orders increased twofold. He says the atmosphere in Sichuan became chaotic, but business is booming for us. Even now, all our workshop artisans have their hands full with making weapons ordered by various sects. As the man's talking, Wool notices the Tang clan descendant getting beaten. The men beating him are saying the Tang clan was ruined because they broke rules like this. They are trying to teach him his place. As Sochu is being beaten, he notices a dagger lying on the ground close to him. Wool approaches them and says humans truly are more atrocious than beasts. The moment they allow themselves to be devalued, they are pulled and ripped apart until their death. If you make enduring a habit, you'll have to keep living as a lowly dog. Wool walks up to Sochu and asks him how he will live. The men beating Sochu ask Wool who he is. They tell Wool to stop talking nonsense and go somewhere else. This has to do with the Fire Dragon Room, they say. Wool ignores them and asks Sochu again how he will live. The men get annoyed with Wool and ask if he's ignoring them. And as the man is looking at Wool, Sochu jumps up and bites him in the neck. Sochu takes the man down, and the man tries to ask Sochu what he's doing. Sochu then grabs the dagger and puts it to the man's eye. The others from the group are in shock and ask why he's acting like a beast. Sochu gets up and asks, "When did you guys ever treat me like a human? You always treated me like a beast," he says. "You seriously think you can get away with this?" they ask. "Do as you like," Sochu says. "I'm tired of getting beaten up by you guys for no reason, but keep this in mind," he warns. "I'll slit the throat of the next person who messes with me." As the men walk away, Sochu starts to fall from his exhaustion. But Wool is there to catch him.
Wool is walking Sochu home. Wool takes a quick look around and compliments Sochu on his home. However, Sochu isn't used to anyone complimenting him and asks Wool if he's mocking him. Wool says his home is no different than a palace, and he then admits to living in a pit of snakes. Sochu thinks Wool is making that up just to make him feel better. Wool then says he's leaving because he has somewhere to be. Sochu asks Wool where he's headed, and Wool asks if Sochu is usually interested in other people's business. Sochu chuckles and says Wool would have asked the same thing. Wool knows it's true and says there are some people who owe him. He was used, abandoned, and hunted. Sochu wants to know who they are and if Wool is going to take revenge. Wool says the Ching sect, the Emi sect, and the sects who support them. Sochu can't believe it and says that's insane. He then asks Wool if he's trying to wage a war against the full force of Sichuan by himself. "I may be insane," Wool says. He then asks for the flying dagger he lent to Sochu because he's going to need it. "Oh, this piece of garbage?" Sochu asks. Wool says that's not garbage. He spent a pile of silver on it. Sochu searches under his bed and says Wool will die pretty quickly if he thinks of taking revenge with this dagger. Sochu throws Wool a weapon he had hidden under his bed and says, "Take this instead." Wool loves it, as the edge, balance, and durability are perfect. Wool asks Sochu if he had a hard time making it. Sochu says he didn't have a hard time making it. He just didn't have a lot of time because he had to make it in secret. Wool asks Sochu if he's sure it's okay to take it. Sochu says of course it is. The Ching sect and the Emi sect are the reason why the Tang clan fell to ruin. Sochu says he can never forgive them for oppressing and alienating the noble Tang clan until it's ruined. And besides, he says, Wool is the first person who told him not to endure it. Wool appreciates the kind gesture and begins testing out his new weapon. Wool has gotten used to the dagger quickly and Sochu is amazed. It's as if the flying blades are moving on their own. He has to remind himself that his eyes are not playing tricks on him. Wool says he's going to name his new weapon the Phantom Dagger. As Wool walks out the door, he gives Sochu his name. Sochu says he'll pray for his success in Sichuan. Later on, in Chengdu, we see a woman holding a meeting. She gives her sincere gratitude to everyone who has gathered here today because of her call. The attendees say they're always prepared to stand together with Lady Wu. She says the 100 Flower Room's circumstances aren't that great due to the pressure from the Ching sect, but she is relieved that everyone is doing their best to help. The men say they'll protect the 100 Flower Room no matter how powerful the Ching sect is. They don't have the power all the way in Chengdu. They reassure Lady Wu that she doesn't have to worry about a thing. Lady Wu thanks them and thinks to herself, men are all the same, nothing but vulgar barbarians. Then she remembers the Emi sect has issued a summons since the Ching sect has been moving in unusual ways. She tells the men at the table that she won't be able to attend the next meeting. The men eagerly ask if they can also join the Emi sect ranks. They even go as far as saying they would climb the Emi sect mountain. Lady Wu sheds tears of joy and thinks to herself that the men are only there because of her looks. She can take all the people who mistake her for a flower under her wing and manipulate them until the day she becomes the leader of the Emi sect and rules over Sichuan. The meeting ends as they walk down the stairs and Lady Wu sees a new face. She's intimidated by Wool's bright eyes and fair skin. Lady Wu decides to approach Wool and she says she's never seen him around here before. She introduces herself as Lady Wu from the 100 Flower Room and asks for Wool's name. He agrees and says his name is Wool. Lady Wu wants to know more and asks Wool if he's a martial artist. Wool tells her to think as she likes. Lady Wu doesn't appreciate Wool's cold response and asks why he won't tell her. Wool asks if she always acts so inquisitively when she meets someone for the first time. The men with Lady Wu don't appreciate Wool's tone and demand he apologize to her. Apologize? Wool asks. One of the men didn't catch Wool's vibe and he tells Wool to get on his knees and formally apologize. If you don't, There will be consequences, he says. Wool gets out of his chair and says there's a limit to how blinded you can be by a woman. Shouldn't you assess your opponent before running rampant? Wool asks. The man gets angry as he doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of Lady Wu and calls for his sword. How dare you mock me? He asks Wool. The man instinctively goes for an attack on Wool, but Wool easily moves out of the way. The man is shocked that Wool dodged his attack so easily. He's now more angry as that's never happened before. The man prepares for another attack with the thunderstorm sword technique of the Clear Sky House. His comrades are afraid he's actually going to kill Wool. The man moves to strike Wool and once again Wool easily avoids the attack. The man can't believe Wool dodged his attack yet again and is left wondering who Wool is. The man again tries to avoid embarrassment and goes for an attack behind Wool's back. Wool easily avoids the man and walks up to Lady Wu. She is mesmerized by Wool's presence. Now that Wool is done moving, the man tries to sneak up on Wool with one last attack. Wool looks back at the man and asks if that's really the best he can do. Wool gets a hold of the man's chin with 2 fingers and slams him into the ground. Wool gets up to face Lady Wu and she asks him to release his anger. Lady Wu tells Wool that the man is not a bad person. She says he was aggressive because he was worried about her. Wool says people must always take responsibility for their actions. Lady Wu replies and says Wool is absolutely right and asks how she can take responsibility for the man. She throws Wool off with this response and he asks if she's really willing to take the responsibility for the man. The man's comrades beg her not to as they'd rather fight with their lives on the line. But Wool realizes what she's doing. She's getting full mileage out of what she has. Wool takes a long look at Lady Wu and he can't help but smirk. Lady Wu has shouldered the responsibility of that man from earlier. Lady Wu then asks Wool if he can do her a favor. She says it shouldn't be too difficult for him, considering how easily he beat up that man earlier. Wool says he needs to hear the favor first. Nam Hosen, she says. She wants Wool to kill Nam Hosen, the next in line of the Thunder Clan. She says not long ago, the Thunder Clan leader Tae Yun Ho proposed the marriage between her and Nam Hosen. They threatened them by saying they would aid the Ching-Chong sect if they refused the proposal, putting the 100 Flower Room and the Emi sect in a very difficult position. Because of him, Wool realizes. Because he has no contact with the 100 Flower Room, Lady Wu must have calculated that she can claim she doesn't know him if he fails. Lady Wu says if Wool kills Nam Hosen for her, she will put in a good word for him with her aunt and make sure he receives a sizable reward. Wool asks who her aunt is. Lady Wu says her aunt is one of the great disciples of the Emi sect leader Ran. She is the pavilion master Jianghu. Is that so? Wool asks with a smile. We are now brought to Mount Emi, where we see Runju and one of her comrades have arrived. The view from the mountain is amazing, but it's all meaningless if they lose to the Ching-Chong sect in the war. Runju and her comrade are visiting for a meeting with the Emi sect. This meeting will include Zhang Huaiyang and the Abbess of 9 Calamities Ran. Ran cuts right to the chase and says there's no way a group of vagabonds would spill blood for free, so they must want something in exchange. Runja says she is correct, as they can't afford to suffer losses after all. Ren asks how much they want and Runju says they believe 500,000 gold yangs is fair. The Emi sect disciples are appalled and Ran has to calm them down. Ran asks Runju if she actually expects her offer to be accepted. Ran says she can hire multiple groups with that kind of money. Runja says that's true, but none of them will be as strong as the Blood Cloud Corps. Ran asks what if she still refuses. Runja says a member of their corps should have arrived at Mount Ching-Chong by now. You're trying both ways, Ran asks. The impertinence, she yells, as Runju and her comrade cough up blood. Ran wants them to be honest. She wants to know what the real offer is. Runja says they are vagabonds who sell their strength to the highest bidder. Our master will be the one who pays even 1 yang more, she says. Ran says Runju's corpse member must also be saying the same thing in Mount Ching-Chong. Ran believes the Ching-Chong sect is already superior to them, and if they hire the vagabonds as well, that'll give them a surefire victory. She wants to dismiss them, but she doesn't know when a conflict will break out, so she needs all the help she can get. Ran orders Zhanghua to go meet with the vagabonds to negotiate. We now see 2 men complaining about their business meeting with the Thunder Clan. They're driving a bargain too hard, one of the men says. He says he's completely exhausted every time he does business with the clan. They wonder how much more the clan has to squeeze from them in order to be satisfied. They can't believe the clan is being so cheap when they have 2 full storage rooms of grains already. The rich are always like that, they say. And as always, watching them and plotting from afar is Wool, as he awaits the return of the Black Cloud Corps. Myung yawns. It's exhausting trying to walk on a tightrope between the Imi sect and the Chingchong sect. He believes it may be time to think about retirement once this is all over. Dayoshi finally returns and says he would have returned sooner, but he saw a familiar face. Dayoshi says he told Mariong about him last time, the person they met by coincidence and traveled with along the way. The man named Wool. Mariong says he remembers, and Dayoshi asks if that bothers him. Mariong says for some reason it does bother him, but it may just be because of the situation they're in with the Chingchong sect and the Imi sect. Dayoshi says if Mariang's senses have a bad feeling about it, it shouldn't be taken lightly. Dayoshi then says there are some 3 members that can tell him more, since he's curious about him as well. Mariong says he thinks that's an excellent idea. Then, in come Runja with the disciples from the Imi sect. Mariong welcomes Jianghu and Young. Mariong asks if he can take the direct arrival of the great disciples of the Imi sect as confirmation that the Imi sect is willing to make a deal. Jianghu says if Mariong is trying to deceive her sect with mediocre strength, they will make sure the Black Cloud Corps pays dearly, even if they have to postpone the war against the Chingchong sect. Mariong smiles and invites them in. The negotiations begin, and Jianghu thinks Mariong is crazy for wanting trading rights beyond the Great Wall. She says a vagabond should act like one and receive gold for payment. Jianghu tells Mariong he is too greedy, but Mariong doesn't think so. He says it's well within the realm of possibilities if the Imi sect becomes ruler of Sichuan. Jianghu is starting to get fed up with Mariong and breaks the table. Jianghu can't contain her anger, as she knows Mariong knows he has the advantage. Mariong says in that case, he'll give up on the trading rights and he won't ask for the 500,000 gold yangs either. He says he won't even ask for compensation for the table and teacup Jianghu just broke. Mariong asks if they can instead help them get settled near the Western Plateau. Jianghu asks if that's what Mariong was aiming for from the start, a place to settle. Mariong says, as you know, Jianghu, we are a group of vagabonds. No sect wants us to settle near them. Jianghu says the same goes for our sect. Mariong says that is why he's suggesting they settle near the Western Plateau, far away from the Imi sect. You can allow something like that, can't you? He asks. Jianghu takes a second to think. She believes they are indispensable to them in the short run if she accepts, but they may become a burden in the future. However, if they use them as meat shields, their forces will dwindle and not much of them will be left. She thinks providing the few who remain a place to settle isn't difficult, and they can be disposed of when they become a problem. Very well then, we accept your proposal, Jianghu says. Negotiations are complete then, Mariong says. Mariong is excited, as he thinks things wouldn't have gone this well if he was negotiating with the Chingchong sect. Mariong asks if they should write up a contract, but Jianghu says there's no need. They will uphold the proposal in the name of the Imi sect. Mariong asks if they will now be headed back to the Imi sect. He offers them a room if they'd like to stay for a day. Jianghu says they will stay in the 100-flower room, as the young master there is her niece. Then, Runja barges in and says she has urgent news. Mariong gets angry and asks how urgent could the news be for her to barge in like this. Runja says the young leader of the Thunder Clan was assassinated. How was the assassin captured? Mariong asks. Doesn't seem like it, and I think the Thunder Clan is sure that this is the Chingchong sect's doing, Runja says. At the Chingchong sect, the Thunder Clan leader Tay arrives unannounced. The Chingchong sect disciples have no idea what's going on, because the clan has come armed. The Chingchong sect leader meets with Tay and asks what's going on. Tay says he's come to ask him the same thing. The Chingchong sect leader says he needs to hear the full story as to why Tay has brought a coffin. Tay says inside this coffin is his disciple's corpse. The Chingchong sect leader offers his condolences and asks Tay what he thinks their sect has to do with it. Tay gets angry and asks if he truly doesn't understand. The sect leader says he truly doesn't understand and wants Tay to explain. Very well, in that case I will show you myself, Tay says. Inside the coffin is the young leader of the Thunder Clan, Nam Hosen. Look at this boy's wounds, Tay says. They are no doubt the wounds from the Chingchong sect's 72 sword waves. The sect leader starts sweating, as they are indeed wounds from the 72 sword waves. Tay asks the sect leader if he will continue to make excuses after seeing the body. His disciple has clearly passed away due to the Chingchong sect's 72 sword waves, Tay says. The only possible explanation is that the culprit is the Chingchong sect. Tay thinks they must have realized they were planning on backing the Imi sect through matrimony with the 100-flower room. He's sure the Chingchong sect made their move first after realizing it. The sect leader begs Tay to calm down and says he will get to the bottom of this. But Tay asks how he can possibly stay calm when his disciple died from the Chingchong sect's sword technique. Here's the proof, he says. So what are you trying to get to the bottom of? Tae wants the Ching Chong sect leader to explain himself this instant. Then, the Ching Chong sect's greatest warrior has heard enough. How dare you act in such a way after coming to the Ching Chong sect unannounced, he asks. He says this is unforgivable. He then rushes Tae and hits him with the thunderstorm palm. Do you find our sect that laughable to the point that you would try to persecute us with such an outrageous accusation, he asks. The sect leader is upset at the greatest warrior for the attack. The greatest warrior walks away and says they would only be a laughingstock if they gave them the attention. It's not too late to figure out what's going on after neutralizing them. The sect leader notices that his junior brother has changed. He has become violent and reckless. Though he was cold in the past, he was never that frenzied. As the disciples check up on him, Tae asks the sect leader if this was the aim of the Ching Chong sect, to neutralize with force and suppress any form of objection. The Ching Chong sect leader can't respond. He tells his junior brother to speak with Tae when he gets up and gives the ThunderClan warriors a place to stay as well. The Ching Chong sect leader then tells his disciple Chung to head to Chengdu. Something is amiss there, and he wants to know what. Back in Chengdu, we see two men conversing in the hall. One wonders if the Ching Chong sect really killed Nam Hosen. It's been said that traces of martial arts can be easily forged, but the other says the more superior the martial art is, the more distinct its traces are. Traces of a martial art like the 72 sword waves can't be imitated. It may actually be true then that the Ching Chong sect are really to blame for Nam Hosen's death. They believe at this rate, a storm of blood may engulf the entirety of Chengdu. Little do they know, they just walked past the room of the real suspect. Will sits at his table. Lady Wu walks in and asks how he did it. Did what? Will asks. Young Lord Nam Hosen of the ThunderClan, she says. She asks Will what he did for the ThunderClan leader to be so furious and accuse the Ching Chong sect of being the culprit. Will acts clueless and asks who knows. Lady Wu, confused, asks if he isn't the one who killed him. Why does it matter who the killer is? Will responds. He says what's more important is that he's dead, don't you think? Will asks. He grabs Lady Wu by the chin and leans in for a kiss. She says yes, you're right, but pulls away. She says it'll be hard for her to meet with him for a while, because she has received an important guest. Will asks who. Lady Wu says she told him before that the Emi sect's first disciple Jianghu is her aunt. She's come to the 100 Flower Room along with her junior sister. She has quite a fussy personality, so she has to attend to her personally. What is Jianghu doing in Chengdu? Will asks. Lady Wu says she heard that Jianghu is there to hire a vagabond group called the Blood Cloud Corps. She says she's heard they are quite powerful among the vagabond groups, and apparently their leader is very intelligent. Will asks Lady Wu when Jianghu will go back to the Emi sect. Lady Wu says she thinks she'll be staying in the 100 Flower Room for a while. It's a pleasure seeing her aunt, but having to see that junior sister of hers, who she can't stand the sight of, leaves a bitter feeling, she says. Lady Wu leaves, and Wu is left wondering if by Jianghu's junior sister, she meant young. She was cool-headed and menacing. He thinks he might see her again while staying in Chengdu. He's sure the Ching Chong sect is in an uproar as well, now that Nam Hosen is dead. He says to himself he'll just have to wait a little longer. We're given a flashback of the 72 sword waves technique being activated and performed masterfully by Wu. The Ching Chong sect disciples have arrived at the crime scene and are looking for clues. They are shocked to see that the traces without a doubt belong to their sect's technique. Chung wonders if this could have been done by an outsider. His comrade believes it could have been, but it's near impossible for an outsider to have learned a secret technique that only a select few have even learned within the sect. Chung says a transcript was leaked once, but the transcript only contained the sword movements. Chung's comrade says if they didn't learn their sect's cultivation technique, a single person wouldn't be able to bring out even half of its true power. Chung then asks if he thinks it was a sect. The Ching Chong sect disciple says that would change things. They'd be able to create a cultivation technique by reverse engineering the movements. However, considering its efficiency, it'd be better to just create a new martial art at that point. They realize they won't be able to come to a conclusion and decide to figure out how the assassin infiltrated instead. As they're retracing the assassin's steps, Chung wonders if this could have been the assassin they saw 7 years ago. But then he shuts that idea down quickly because he's sure he's dead. They leave the scene and are headed to the inn for some rest. On their way to the inn, they run into the Emi sect. Both sects get riled up as they come face to face. Chung says, "It's been a while, Jianghu. What scraps have you come all the way here to nibble on?" Jianghu asks. They bicker for a moment, and then Young suggests they withdraw for now. Jianghua tells her to shut up as she doesn't want to turn tail to these Qingchang bastards. Did you kill the young leader of the Thunder Clan while knowing he was going to be betrothed to the young leader of the 100 Flower Room? Jianghua asks. She then says she's impressed they've thrown their humanity away so easily. Chong says, like you're one to talk. You invested 7 years into killing your sect's most promising prospect. Young knew it would end up like this. She wonders where it all went wrong. She recalls they were the ones who started this, but they didn't actually think the assassin would kill Wugan. He's long dead, but we're still wrapped around his fingers, she thinks. She realizes she doesn't even know his name. Then she feels a cold gaze and wonders who it is, but she doesn't see anyone. She thinks she may have been mistaken. Her senses are as sharp as ever. Will says to himself, I needed an appropriate ember to light the fire of conflict, but quite the big shots have already gathered. It's not a bad start. He thinks to himself.
The story continues on a starry night in Chengdu. Runju asks Wool where he's been this whole time. She says it feels like she's been waiting forever. Wool thought he was meeting with Runju alone, but it turns out he's also meeting with Mariang and Dayoshi. They eat dinner together and Mariang introduces himself as the captain of the Black Cloud Corps. Mariang tells Wool that he's heard a lot about him. He also says that Runju has taken a great interest in him, so he wanted to meet him at least once. Now that the two are meeting face to face, Mariang can see how strong Wool is. Mariang says to Wool, though you're concealing that intense energy of yours very well by drawing attention to your flashy attire and appearance, you cannot hide everything. The energy that leaks out of you is abnormal. Runju is feeling good about the interaction so far. Mariang says he's going to get straight to the point and tries to recruit Wool to the Black Cloud Corps. He says people only view them as a group of vagabonds, but he has a dream. Mariang's dream is to make the Black Cloud Corps an acknowledged section. To make that happen, he knows he needs every capable person they can get. Mariang says he's willing to offer Wool anything he desires. He says he'd even offer him Runju. Dayoshi can't wait to watch what happens next. He thinks it's interesting that Runju is acting like she's not interested in Wool when he knows the truth. Dayoshi is eager to see how Wool will respond. Wool says that's not an attractive offer and Dayoshi can't keep his drink in. He apologizes for the interruption and tells them to continue. Mariang turns back to Wool and asks what's not to like, joining the corpse or Runju. Wool says everything. He'd rather not lay his hands on food that's obviously bound to spoil. Runju can't believe she's just been rejected. There's an awkward moment of silence and Mariang bursts out laughing. He says it was just a joke. He stands up and says to Wool, you have no idea how valuable Runju is. Mariang offers Wool a piece of advice. He says, try not to come face to face with our corpse. I like to have conversations, but the others like to take action first. Wool says, let me say something as well. If you're suddenly beheaded while walking down the road one day, you can think of it as my doing. Mariang nervously smirks and Wool says, it's just a joke. But Mariang's not laughing. Later on, a disciple returns with an update to Chong. Chong wants to know what the Emu sect is up to. The disciple says the Emu sect hasn't taken a single step out of the 100 Flower Room. He says he's dispatched a few of the disciples around the 100 Flower Room just in case. Chong says they have to track down the scoundrel who killed the young leader of the Thunder Clan as soon as possible. That way, they can unveil the truth and take the necessary countermeasures. The disciple says they'd know the movements in the backwaters best. He says he's sure they know who approached everyone on the Thunder Clan that day, since their eyes are spread all over Sichuan like a spider web. Chong says he'd rather not use them, but leaves it up to the disciple. The disciple says he will not disappoint. Chong looks out into the night sky and thinks more sects are involved in this than he expected. The Thunder Clan, the Golden Heaven Clan, and even the 100 Flower Room. Who knows how many problems could arise if the assassin is not caught quickly. Down the street, we see a spy trying to collect information on Wool. He was sure that he'd received confirmation of him being inside, but he can't feel his presence at all. The spy knows Wool is extraordinary, but he can't believe that he can't even hear a single breath. The spy looks out the window and gives the signal. The signal is accepted and taken back to Yang, the Black Cloud Corps vice captain. The ninja says to Yang, the first-class surveillance target has made no movements all night, and now that the sun will rise, they will switch from long-range surveillance to close range. Good, Yang says. The captain seems to be quite bothered by him, so tell them to continue surveilling him without dropping their guard even for a moment. The ninja heads off to deliver the message and Yang decides to get back to work. He's analyzing a problem with the gates at the foot of Mount Qingchang. He recalls that the power of the Black Cloud Corps cannot be used in these gates. They need to drag them down to the foot of the mountain to effectively make use of their 200 horses. As he thinks how he could make that happen, he senses something wrong and throws daggers to the ceiling. He sees nothing there and wonders if he's being overly sensitive. Yang was sure he felt something, but believes he may have been mistaken since he's so on edge. Meanwhile, at the 100 Flower Room, Jianghu tells Yang to go back to Mount Emu. Yang asks why. Jianghu says there's nothing for her to do anymore now that the negotiation was a success and it'd be best for her to return to Ran. Yang says she can't go back because they can clash with the Qingchang sect in Chengdu at any moment. Yang wants to stay and support Jianghu. Jianghu says worst case scenario, she'll just use the Black Cloud Corps as her meat shields. She wants Yang to do as she says. Yang sighs and accepts Jianghu's request, though she clearly does not want to. Jianghu tells Yang she can leave first thing in the morning. After Yang leaves the room, Lady Wu enters. Lady Wu says she thought Jianghu would like some company. Jianghu appreciates the thought and asks Lady Wu if she's seen anyone. She notices her complexion looks much healthier. Lady Wu says she has and he is quite the use to him. She then spits out that she thinks the man she's seen is the one who killed the young leader of the Thunder Clan. Jianghu is shocked and asks if she is certain. Lady Wu realizes she may have revealed too much information and says she has no proof. She also says she'd introduce him to her when she finds out if he did it or not. Jianghu asks for his name, but before Lady Wu can tell her, they are interrupted. The two run to see what's going on and the disciples say Go is dead. They believe this was the Qingchang sect's doing. Fuel has now been added to the fire. The next morning, Mariang and his vice captain Yang head to the flower room. Mariang informs his vice captain that an Emu sect disciple was found dead. He worries he may have chosen the wrong side of the war. Yang says this isn't terrible news, as they might need them even more now. But the fact that there's an assassin of this level in Sichuan is strange. After the fall of the Blood Shadow Group 7 years ago, not a single assassin group has set foot in Sichuan. As they wonder who it could be, Mariang says there's no way a prestigious orthodox sect like the Qingchang sect could have hired an assassin. Yang suggests a third party could have intervened. One person comes to mind for Mariang. Mariang then asks if their spy reported anything unordinary. Yang says the spy reported that Wool hasn't set foot outside in 4 days. Yang knows the spy is very talented, so there isn't a doubt in his mind. Mariang asks Yang if he's sure it couldn't have been Wool. Yang says, considering the circumstances until now, yes. Mariang trusts his vice captain, so he tells him to tell the spy to stop watching Wool for now and focus on figuring out the Qingchang sect movements. Mariang and his vice captain meet with Jianghu and offer their condolences. Jianghu says she called them here today because she wants them to look at her disciples' wounds. She thought they were simple wounds at first, but quickly realized they weren't. Mariang takes a look and is puzzled. The wounds are overly thin and sharp, so it can't be a sword or a dagger. He thinks maybe a silver wire, but no matter how sharp a silver wire is, there's no way it would have prevented the skin from curling up. Not even someone as experienced as him has seen something like this before. Jianghu asks him. Mariang says that's correct. Jianghu then asks if there's anyone he suspects. Wool comes to his mind once again, but it can't be him, he thinks. Mariang apologizes to Jianghu and says he can't give her the answers she desires. Jianghu asks when all of Mariang's forces will return to Chengdu. Mariang says they will all return in 2 days, but the Qingchang sect will be wary if the cavalrymen enter Chengdu. Jianghu says she doesn't care. They will crush them in a flash. Mariang asks if she is planning on waging a frontal assault right away. Jianghu says she said she would give Mariang what he wanted, so he shouldn't be afraid. She says she'd rather die than live under the same sky as the Qingchang sect. Mariang and his vice captain understand, but no one notices who's behind her. The night time comes and we're brought to the hospital. We see one of Mariang's men severely injured. Mariang asks to know what happened to O. Runju says they went to see Wool and got completely messed up. Furious, Mariang demands to hear the whole story. Runju recalls the story and starts from the beginning. Runju spotted Wool eating and approached him. Wool clearly wanted to eat in peace. Runju said she was just checking up on him. She wanted to apologize for being disrespectful during their meeting with Mariang. Wool said he didn't care. Runju tried to act like his response didn't bother her, but it did. She then asks Wool to think about Mariang's offer again, but as they were conversing, they were interrupted by O. Irritated, she was no longer alone with Wool. Runju asked O why he was following her. O said he was just coming to get her because Mariang wanted her. O then introduced himself to Wool. Runju noticed O had no intentions of leaving, so she got even more annoyed. O tried striking a conversation with Wool, but Runju wanted him to stop. Wool said he'd give O one chance to leave him alone. He told him to turn away before he counted to 3. Wool said if he didn't, he'd make it so that O can't see anything until the day he dies. Clearly unaware of what Wool was capable of, O began to calm himself down. He reached a count of 3 and he didn't move. Wool took his chopsticks and went right for O's eyes. Surprisingly, O was prepared and blocked the attack. O then went for an attack of his own, but he never had a chance of actually hitting Wool. Wool evaded and began his own attack. Runju tried to stop the fight, as she knew things were about to get worse, but it was too late. O was suffocated and severely injured. Wool then picked up O's head and shoved his fingers right into his eyes. Wool was done and ready to walk away, but Runju was not happy. She sent an attack at Wool, but when he turned to face her, she offered a truce. She told Wool she didn't come to see him for a fight and O has already paid the price for interrupting them. She said there's no more blood to spill. Without words, Wool accepted and turned away. Runju took a sigh of relief and had a final message for Wool. She told him he's really unpredictable and despite everything O did, she couldn't believe Wool took it that far. She told Wool to be careful. If he keeps acting as he likes without caution, he won't be able to avoid unexpected misfortune. Her threat meant nothing to Wool and he walked away. He was just upset his clothes were ruined because his girlfriend from the brothel gave them to him. After hearing Runju's story, Mariang is left baffled. He's angry to have lost such an important member at such a crucial time. Runju says at this point, her pride is so hurt she can't handle it. She vows to make sure Wool will pay for this humiliation. Mariang says that's a good choice. They can dispose of him once the matter with the Qingchang sect is resolved. Runju agrees. As they go their separate ways, Mariang says they'll make their move as soon as they regroup with the cavalrymen. Make ample preparations. Runju responds. Later on, we see Chong meeting with the ignoble clan branch manager. Chong wants to find the culprit who killed the young leader of the Thunder clan. The manager says that's as difficult as finding a needle in the haystack. The only clue is that they use a martial art of the Qingchang sect. Chong asks if there are any rumors of anyone standing out in Chengdu. The manager says there is one. A man named Wool. They say he possesses beauty that can charm others and is a ruthless master whose skill can't be described with words. Chong asks if that means he has something to do with the death of the Thunder clan's young leader. The branch manager says that he doesn't know, but he does know he fits the conditions of people that Chong is looking for best. Chong makes his payment and walks away. As the manager reflects on this interaction, he wonders if Wool could be the culprit. He grabs one of his books and looks up Wool's name. The manager doesn't find out much about Wool that isn't already known. He asks himself if this could really be the assassin that killed Nam Hosen. The manager plans to send this information to the headquarters so they could handle it. In doing so, Wool will have to live under the ignoble clan's watchful eyes. But to his surprise, Wool was watching him the whole time. Now he can't move and Wool takes his book. Wool's soul-reaping thread is a wire made from his chi, invisible to the eye of everyone. The manager turns to Wool and asks who he is. Wool says he's impressed that the manager has investigated him. He says it hasn't even been that long since he's entered Chengdu. The manager says the ignoble clan will not stand for it if Wool harms him. Wool says he knows and that's why he's there. The manager asks why. Wool says he doesn't like his information spreading around without his permission. The manager realizes who he's talking to and asks if it's Wool. Wool says he's right. The manager wonders why Wool is exposing his identity like this and wonders if Wool is trying to silence him by killing him. The manager begs Wool to spare his life, as no one has seen the book yet. Wool says that's laughable, because he was saying Wool's name very openly earlier. The manager begins to panic and tries to break free. The manager breaks loose for a second and tries to attack with his pushing shadow hand. Wool is not fazed and uses his soul-reaping thread to finish the manager. Wool leaves the manager lifeless and takes his book. Somewhere in Chengdu, there's an explosion. The Qingchang sect and the Emu sect are facing off. Buildings are on fire and Mariang feels as if he's living in a nightmare. The two sects fight as they've both reached their tipping points. Mariang and the Black Cloud Corps are left watching. The Fire Dragon Master Po yells for everyone to stop fighting, but he gets hit in the crossfire. Po's clan retaliates and they join in on the war. Mariang is in disbelief. He says the Emu sect is currently at a disadvantage because they lack forces. Mariang has no choice and summons the entire Black Cloud Corps. He is prepared to join the fray. The war continues and Jianghu joins Zen. She charges right towards the Qingchang sect. Jianghu then faces off with Chong. How dare you send an assassin to kill my disciple? And how could Qingchang still call itself a reputable sect of the Jianghu, she asks. Chong says, you are the ones who crossed the Qingchang sect first and you hired an assassin to kill Wu Gun. Are you not the ones behind the murder of the Thunder Clan's young leader as well, he asks. Jianghu says she heard the assassin used the sword technique of the Qingchang sect. She then rushes at Chong for trying to pin this on them. As she attacks, she yells, one of us will be buried here today. Chong is ready for battle as they clash. Young is trying to do her part in the war. She fights off a few Qingchang sect disciples, but she is unable to protect the disciple with her. Young cries for her junior sister and tells her to circulate her aura, but the disciple is in too much pain and she can't. The disciple passes and Young breaks down while holding the lifeless disciple. Young thinks about how this whole war was instigated by the Emu sect. That's why she was hesitant to join the war against the Qingchang sect. But because of her indecisiveness, the sect disciples are now dying. She tells herself she can't keep dodging the issue any longer. Another explosion goes off near Yang and he wonders where his forces are. Mariang calls for Seo, one of his members. He says things are flowing strangely. The people who went to gather the forces haven't returned and everything just feels contrived, as if someone is adding fuel to the flames. Mariang tells Seo to leave the battle and search the area. Check if there really is such a person. Seo flies over the war. He thinks this is the epitome of madness. Both forces have put the assassination incident aside and are simply tearing each other apart. The captain is right. There must be someone inciting such a situation to happen. He wonders where such a person would be, since there are battles everywhere you go. They wouldn't be in a building that could collapse at any moment, and there doesn't seem to be anyone like that among those fighting either. He tries hard to think of where they could possibly be. Then he sees the tree that is considered to be sacred in Chengdu. It's perfect enough to be able to view all the surroundings. Xiao hops on the tree and checks if the person is hiding inside. Then from the corner of his eye, he sees someone hiding in the tree. Someone in a black warrior robe with red eyes. The man activates his daggers and Xiao is amazed at the skill. The daggers are headed right towards him and he wonders if this is a telekinetic sword technique. He doesn't understand how a master like this could be in Chengdu. Xiao is no match and is now being strangled by the man. As Xiao fights for air, the man approaches him and finishes him off. Then the man goes back to watching the war from a distance. He watches as Jianghu has fallen to Chong. Chong stands victorious and Jianghu is severely injured. Young rushes to her side and asks if she's alright. Jianghu can't answer and Young takes her back to the 100-flower room. As Chong watches them leave, his junior brothers rush in for help, but Chong says it's time to go as well. Both sects withdraw their forces, as Jianghu's wounds are serious. This is all news that the disguised man, Wu, likes to hear. The next morning, Mariang is shown 2 corpses. He asks who killed these people and Dayoshi says they were killed by the same person. The marks on their necks are identical. Based on the size and shape of the wounds, the assailant probably used either a short sword or a dagger. Mariang then recalls those wounds were caused by daggers as well. He calls for O and he was right. The wounds are exactly the same. Mariang knows exactly what this means. Wu is the one who killed the ignoble clan branch manager and Xiao. Mariang demands for Wu to be brought to him immediately. He says he'll interrogate him himself. Back at the 100-flower room, 2 disciples are discussing the severity of Jianghu's injuries as they contemplate what snacks to eat. Young tells them to pull themselves together. She says to check the defenses of the 100-flower room, because the Qingchang sect can attack at any second. She also wants a messenger pigeon sent to the main sect right away. Young wants to inform them of everything that's happened and call for reinforcements. Young believes the deaths of her disciple and the Thunder Clan's young leader increased the hostility between the 2 sects and it grew way out of hand. She knows someone is intentionally causing strife between the 2 sects, but she needs to find out who. Inside, Jianghu lays on her bed. Her injuries are critical and she needs to stay as calm as possible, but she doesn't want any advice from the doctor and tells him to get lost before she cuts his head off. He exits the room and she thinks of this sorry state she's in. She doesn't want Young to take initiatives, so she wants to recover quickly. The door opens and Jianghu thinks it's the doctor again. Without looking up, she tells him to get lost. After not receiving a response, she looks up and asks this person who he is. "Don't you remember me?" he asks Jianghu. He approaches Jianghu and she asks if he knows her. "Of course," the man responds. "I've never forgotten you for a single moment in the past 7 years. I wonder if you'll remember if I blind the last eye you have," he asks. Then Jianghu remembers. It's Wu from back then. "Long time no see," Wu says. "How are you here?" Jianghu asks. "You definitely died back then. The Qingchang sect's greatest warrior threw you into the snake hole," she says. "Yeah, he did," Wu says. "But now it's time for me to mess you up." "I'm the one," he says. "The person who killed your disciple and the Thunder Clan's young leader. How dare you kill our disciple?" Jianghu responds. "Are you trying to make an enemy of the Emu sect after killing one of us? Do you think it's easy to continue with the rest? Are you not afraid at all?" she asks. She asks all this not calmly. Jianghu is clearly suffering. You guys made me this way, Wu says. We were all your creations. Without you guys, there's no way we could have been reborn as assassins. In pain, Jianghu asks Wu what he wants. He says he doesn't want anything. He just wants to let her know what will happen to the emu sect from now on. Wu says it'll be good for them, because he's going to kill Chong of the Qingchang sect today. He'll be killed by one of the ultimate techniques of the emu sect, the snow cloud piercing strike. And it just so happens that Young uses the snow cloud piercing strike. Jianghu can't take it anymore and says she ought to kill Wu right now. Wu says the Qingchang sect and the emu sect will spill each other's blood. Both sides will end up with huge losses. The blood of the monsters crouching in the mountains will also be spilled. People like Ran and the Qingchang sect's greatest warrior. Jianghu wants to get rid of Wu so badly, but she has no life left. Wu says he will pull everyone out from hiding and he'll make sure to devour everyone. Jianghu uses her last breath of air to call Wu a bastard and she collapses. Wu says she should have never created something like him. Someone as horrifying as he is. The Black Cloud Corps continued their relentless search for Wu. As always, Wu remained a few steps ahead, elusive and cunning. Runju, feeling foolish for falling for Wu's deceptive looks, vowed to skin him alive if she ever laid eyes on him again. Meanwhile, Dayoshi and Hayu tried to maintain productivity, but their efforts were overshadowed by the fear that Wu was out causing more trouble at the Golden Heaven clan. In Chengdu, two disciples took a break from their rigorous training to discuss recent events. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the area, prompting them to rush inside and investigate. The disciples recognized the telltale sounds and lights of the snow cloud piercing strike, a deadly technique they associated with the Emi section. They suspected that the Emi disciples had infiltrated their sanctuary, and Chong was caught in the middle of it all. Chong, practicing his martial arts, couldn't relax. Unexpectedly, an intruder approached, the very person he had feared. Wu introduced himself, and Chong's memory stirred. The ignoble clan branch manager had mentioned this name before. Why are you here in the middle of the night? Chong asked, suspicion in his eyes. Wu smirked. Anyone visiting secretly at this hour is up to no good. The same goes for me. Chong stumbled with his next question. Did you kill the Thunder Clan's young leader? Wu's response was chilling. Yes, I did. Grudges against your sect and the Emi sect drove me. Chong pieced it together. Wu was not only an assassin but also a public enemy in Sichuan. The pieces of a dark puzzle fell into place. Was Wu the same assassin who had killed Wu Gunsang 7 years ago? Wu confirmed it. I am he. Chong drew his sword, warning Wu that he had made a grave mistake. Wu could have stayed hidden and kept his life, but now Chong was determined to end it. The battle began, and Wu's daggers met Chong's furious strikes. With a single finger, Wu unleashed his soul-reaping thread, suffocating Chong. The battle ended abruptly, leaving Chong gasping for breath. Wu's parting words were cold, send my greetings to Zhang Wan. Outside, the disciples witnessed the aftermath, an explosion that signaled Chong's demise. Blinded by rage, they blamed the Emi sect, playing right into Wu's hands. Revenge was imminent. As the bloodshed escalated, suspicion faded. All that mattered was survival and vengeance. Amid the chaos, Young walked through the battlefield, feeling as though she had stepped into hell itself. How had things spiraled so far? Mariang interrupted her thoughts. He had information about the killings and a name, Wu. The assassin who had taken Wu Gunsang's life 7 years ago was now escalating the war between the Qingchang sect and the Emi sect. Ran couldn't fathom how Wu had learned the Emi sect's snow cloud piercing strike. One of the disciples who perished in the cave had carried a secret manual. Perhaps Wu had retrieved a copy from that unfortunate disciple. Why would anyone carry a secret manual around? Ran wondered aloud. The disciple, acting as a mere messenger, cautioned that nothing was confirmed yet. But Ran knew the Ching Chong sect wouldn't accept such reasoning. They had no choice, they had to capture Wool. Determined to punish Wool for mocking the great Emi sect, Ran set out to capture him herself. In Chengdu, at the Fire Dragon Room, Wool reunited with his old friend, Sochu. The place hadn't changed, Sochu still crafted deadly weapons that took human lives. Hey everyone! I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you found it entertaining, could we aim for 150 likes? It really supports the channel and helps us reach more amazing viewers like you. Wool posed a question to Sochu: how should we deal with those who cause suffering while believing themselves noble? Sochu, ever pragmatic, replied, do whatever you want, as long as they all die. Taking a man with him, Wool instructed Sochu to watch closely. He wanted Sochu to witness the dagger he had crafted in action. Joy radiated from Sochu as they walked the streets of Chengdu together. Wool used the dagger to eliminate the remaining nobles, leaving Sochu in awe of its power. Sochu, humbled, asked if Wool needed his help. Bowed before Wool, he begged to assist. Meanwhile, the Thunder Clan leader, Tay, fled for his life. The Ching Chong sect's greatest warrior pursued him relentlessly. Tay's life ended abruptly, leaving the sect leader bewildered. Why had the greatest warrior taken Tay's life? The answer came from Mu, the assassin. Chong had died because of him. Mu vowed not to spare anyone connected to Chong's death. His murderous intent shook the sect leader, who wondered what had driven Mu into such darkness. 7 years ago, they had lost Wu Gun Sang due to the Emi sect's tricks. Now, Strong was gone. The future of the Ching Chong sect hung in the balance. Mu could no longer overlook the chaos. He flew away, leaving the sect leader's younger brother, Ha, concerned. Ha feared that if Mu joined forces with Jin, bloodshed would consume Sichuan. Jin, locked up since his son's death, harbored deep hatred for the Emi sect. Ha volunteered to investigate the strange events, hoping to reveal the truth. The fate of the Ching Chong sect rested in Ha's hands. Meanwhile, back in Chengdu, Will reviewed the ignoble clan branch manager's book. The Black Cloud Corps' captain was a Smayang, and Daoshi and Hayu were potential threats. Will marveled at the wealth of information within those pages. The ignoble clan was undeniably top-notch. Their intelligence network extended beyond Chengdu's martial artists, encompassing all of Sichuan. Memorizing this vast web of information would undoubtedly prove useful someday. As he surveyed the war-torn landscape, guilt no longer plagued him. Imprisoned underground, survival was his sole purpose. There was no turning back, he had become a creature of necessity. Giving up was not an option, he would persist until the bitter end, even if that end lay among the flames. In the 100-Flower Room, Emi sect disciples fought tirelessly to aid the injured. Medicine had run out, leaving them uncertain about replenishing their supplies. But Young, resourceful and unyielding, had already called for more. Her determination impressed Meringue, who marveled at her ability to secure supplies even in dire circumstances. Daoshi spoke of the Emi sect's hidden talent, the best in a century. Zhanghua's death had unshackled Young's potential. She knew how to deploy people effectively, commanding respect and loyalty. If Young ascended to the Emi sect leadership, they could rise once more. But their conversation was interrupted. Ran, the Emi sect leader, had arrived in Chengdu. Disciples paid their respects, but Ran's displeasure was evident. Surprisingly, Lady Wu from the 100-Flower Room also paid homage to Ran. Lady Wu's unease hinted at a mistake she feared she had made. Inside the 100-Flower Room, Young briefed Ran on every detail of the incident. Wu's name hung in the air, and Lady Wu grew nervous. Ran confronted Lady Wu, her eyes sharp and unyielding. "Do you have anything to say?" she demanded. Lady Wu hesitated, fear etched on her face. "Pardon," she stammered. Ran pressed further. "How are you related to Wu?" Her grip tightened. "Look me straight in the eye. I despise liars. Why were you so restless when his name was mentioned?" Lady Wu's voice trembled. "My apologies. I didn't anticipate things turning out like this. I merely wanted to use him. I never imagined it would come to this. If you assign a few people to me, I'll capture him and bring him here. I'll clean up this mess. Rand seized her again. Who ordered you to kill the ThunderClan's young leader? You could have lived quietly among men, like a flower. Lady Wu admitted her mistake. I'll live like a flower from now on, she whispered. Young sensed trouble and called out Rand's name, but it was too late. Lady Wu lay lifeless. Why? Young's fury erupted. You didn't need to go that far. She didn't act with malice. Killing her was unnecessary. Meringue watched, awestruck by Young's power. Rand smirked. Young had finally revealed her true strength. Learn this, Rand said. Once you make exceptions, you'll keep making them. If someone commits a wrongdoing worthy of death, they must die. Young stormed out, leaving Lady Wu's body behind. Marianne realized Rand might have intended to kill Lady Wu from the start, to subdue the 100 Flower Room. Rand's power surpassed mere martial mastery. She was meticulous. Rand called for Marianne, revealing her plan. The Black Cloud Corps would hunt Wu down. 2 disciples disposed of Lady Wu's body in the forest, leaving it for stray animals. But Wu approached. Gathering rocks, he buried her properly. He wouldn't apologize, they had used each other. Yet he vowed to avenge her, ensuring those responsible paid the price. Bereavement, the deepest loss, weighed on him. It was the sorrow of a parent losing their child. Meanwhile, at Jin's home, Ha knocked. Jin's manager appeared, and Ha requested an audience. The Qingchang sect needed Jin's help. Jin, isolated since Wu Gunsing's assassination, welcomed them inside. Ha revealed the assassin's technique, the same one that had killed Jin's son. Jin's fury ignited. The assassin who killed the ThunderClan's young leader is the same assassin who killed my son, he declared. Ha, taken aback, asked, is that true? What will you do about it? Jin's bereavement transformed into seething rage. In Chengdu, Wu practiced with his daggers near the well. But an approaching figure caught his attention, Runju. She remarked on his improved looks since their last encounter. Wu knew she hadn't come merely for a chat. Dayoshi and Hayu observed, impressed by Wu's heightened senses. Runju revealed that this was Wu's final chance to join the Black Cloud Corps. If he refused, they would have to fulfill their client's request, to kill him. Bickering ensued. Dayoshi suggested that Wu hide better, but Runju insisted they stick to the mission. They had already informed the Emi sect that Wu was dead. Even if Wu were discovered alive, he had grown too formidable for anyone in Sichuan to challenge. Dayoshi revealed their client, the Emi section. Wu questioned Dayoshi's betrayal of clients and the importance of credibility. Dayoshi dismissed credibility, claiming it no longer mattered in chaotic Chengdu. He didn't dislike Wu, he wanted him to join the Black Cloud Corps. Wu hesitated, refusing to compromise his assassin's integrity. Meanwhile, Runju pondered whether someone had hired Wu for the deeds in Chengdu. Wu reflected on his fallen friend Min's words, the crushing helplessness of facing insurmountable strength. Runju hit the mark. Wu's client was a woman. A man would charge into danger for a woman. Dayoshi, surprised by Wu's sentimentality, demanded to know more about her. Runju attacked, creating chaos. But Wu vanished, leaving Marine to confront Runju. Marine's warning had been futile. Wu stood on the roof, exposed. Marine ordered Yang's men to kill him, but Wu's soul-reaping thread swept them aside. Wu taunted them, mocking their involvement in his war.
The story continues with 2 men conversing when suddenly, there's a commotion. They wonder what's going on as they see Wu being chased by the Black Cloud Corps. They've never seen him before and are unsure if Wu is running for his life or just running with his subordinates. Catching a glimpse of the men, Wu devises a new plan, changes direction, and heads straight for them. To their surprise, Wu takes out one of the men. The other man begins yelling at Wu, questioning his actions. Wu responds by taking his life as well. Other innocent bystanders gather around Wu, thinking he's lost his mind. The black cloud core finally catches up to Wool and wonders what he's doing. Wool looks back at them, his plan unfolding successfully. The bystanders start questioning why they're killing people so recklessly. Runju and the black cloud core realize they've been duped by Wool. The bystanders, thinking they are associated with Wool, are ready to fight the black cloud core. Dayoshi and Runju now understand they've been played. Wool managed to slow the black cloud core down and takes off, leaving them to contend with the bystanders alone. Ranger tries to explain, but Haya steps up, declaring he'll handle the bystanders. Haya tells Runju and Dayoshi to continue pursuing Wool. They take off, telling Haya he better survive. "That's an order I will follow," Haya responds. Muriang, Runju, and Dayoshi catch up to Wool. They're on a rooftop, observing the war below. Both sides are fighting fiercely, willing to go to extreme measures. Neither will stop until the end. Muriang is astounded that one assassin could deceive all of Chengdu, escalating a small battle into a full-scale conflict. Muriang asks Wool if he even understands the chaos he's caused. Wool inquires if everyone, including those hiding, is out now. He remarks that although the results are different from what he expected, it seems to be better than he ever imagined, all thanks to the Black Cloud Corps. Wool thanks them, saying the battlefield is about to become even more chaotic. Runju has heard enough and draws her weapon. She attacks Wool, but he dodges. Dayoshi joins in, drawing his weapon, and declares, "Let's put an end to things here." He attacks Wool, who dodges again. Wool activates his soul-reaping thread and sends daggers flying towards Dayoshi. Dayoshi is alarmed as Wool has finally stopped running and is fighting back. Dayoshi is amazed at the speed of Wool's daggers and defends as best he can. But Wool isn't messing around anymore. He sends a dagger from behind Dayoshi and severs his arm. Dayoshi screams in pain. Wool surrounds Runju with additional daggers. She's shocked she can't see them due to their speed. Runju realizes Wool is acting differently than before. He's serious this time. As Runju looks up, she sees Wool looming over Dayoshi, ready to end his suffering. Muriang intervenes, launching his spear at Wool. As the spear approaches, Wool grabs Dayoshi and uses him as a shield. Muriang's attack impales Dayoshi. Wool looks at the wounded Dayoshi and flees. Runju rushes to Dayoshi, pleading with him not to die. As Dayoshi loses consciousness, he assures her he won't die. In tears, Runju yells for Muriang to pursue Wool, to catch him and tear him apart. Muriang is determined to avenge Dayoshi and takes off. From afar, Ran is observing the war with Young and the Ame sect. Young says they need to quickly rescue their ally, the Qingming sect, and stabilize the situation as soon as possible. Ran agrees, as the situation is worse than she thought. She orders everyone to advance into the Fire Dragon Room. At the Fire Dragon Room, they receive a knock from Ran and the Ame sect. The Fire Dragon Room master, Pio, knows they'll be at a disadvantage if they open the door. Out of patience, Ran breaks the door down. Pio calls her a witch. Ran doesn't appreciate the name-calling. Pio tells Ran to have her people stand down, saying this is a problem between the Fire Dragon Room and the Qingming sect, and it's no place for the Ame sect to interfere. Ran counters, saying everyone knows how the Qingming sect and the Ame sect are related. When Pio tries to respond, Ran attempts to silence him, but Pio is ready. As Pio defends, he realizes he didn't know Ran was this strong. Ran has had enough and jumps up to deal her final blow, declaring, "With this, it's over." But just before she can strike, the Qingming sect's greatest warrior, Mu, blocks the attack. Ran can't believe her powerful attack was stopped. She looks at Mu and says, "Long time no see." Mu remarks that he never thought they'd meet like this again. Ran expresses her displeasure at seeing him. Mu reveals he waited 7 years to face Ran, lamenting that if his senior brothers hadn't rejected his proposal to obliterate the Ame sect 7 years ago, they would have met much sooner. Ran recognizes Mu's energy, noting that he seems to have gained some enlightenment. She can feel a mysterious energy from him that she hadn't seen before. Mu admits he's learned some new martial arts. Ran is confident in her knowledge of the Qingming sect's martial arts, but admits she never imagined they had hidden a martial art that exuded such impure energy. Mu warns her not to judge the Qingming sect by her own standards, claiming what they are capable of is far greater and more vast than that of the Ame sect. Ran sarcastically comments on their greatness, pointing out that even a mere assassin made a fool out of them. Mu inquires about the assassin, and Ran reveals that the assassin he thought was dead in the underground cave is still alive. She questions whether Mu checked the corpse, leading to the realization that he didn't. Ran explains that this oversight led to the current situation. Mu asks if the assassin is really alive, and Ran confirms he's the main culprit behind all the chaos, including the deaths of the young leader of the Thunder Clan, Jianghu of their sect, and Chong of his sect. Mu is shocked to learn they'd been played by a mere assassin. Ran suggests they settle their differences after dealing with him, but Mu refuses, preparing for battle. He accuses Ran of being the one who ordered the assassination of Wu Gunseng and refuses to miss this opportunity. He declares that the 7 swords of the Qingming are to help the Fire Dragon Room drive away the Wicked Witch of the Ame sect. As Ran faces an army, she declares that he's chosen the hard way and must pay for his crimes with his death. Mu agrees, and they face off and charge at each other. Not far away, Wool stops running. He looks out into the distance to see Mu and Ran fighting and can't help but smirk. Later on, Wool continues to run, while Muriang can't believe he's having a hard time catching up, even on horseback. He wonders if Wool is producing threads with energy and then stepping on them in midair. Regardless of the method Wool is using, Muriang is determined to catch up to him and kill him. He then has a flashback to his younger years, the first time he met Daoshi. He is still hurt that Wool killed Daoshi, who was like his teacher. Muriang calls for an attack, and the Black Cloud Corps unleashes their spears at Wool. Wool senses the spears and turns back towards them. They question why Wool is running towards the spears like a madman, and right before their eyes, Wool disappears. As they look around to see where he could have gone, Wool pops up right above them. When they look up, Wool unleashes his attack. Muriang has been outplayed by Wool yet again. Wool is done running, though he's circled in by Muriang and the Black Cloud Corps. Muriang says he will make sure to kill him with his own hands. Wool replies and says he doesn't understand. He asks, "Isn't this how everyone lives? Isn't this what the Jianghu is like? You, the Qingchang sect, the Ame sect, all of you kill people all the time. How are you guys different than me? How many people do you think the Qingchang sect and the Ame sect have sacrificed in order to get the reputation they have now?" Wool looks at the Black Cloud Corps and asks, "What about you guys? In order to maintain such a huge organization of vagrants, I'm sure you have killed at least 10 times more people than the number of people you have here." Wool says he simply created an opportunity here. He then asks, "Isn't the reason that the situation is in this state because of all your greed and ambition?" Irate, Muriang says Wool has really lost his mind. Muriang then gets a closer look at Wool's dagger. He thinks it's shining more than it was before. He wonders if Wool infused energy into his weapon to make it shine. Muriang then questions what Wool could gain from revealing his own weapon. Then Muriang sends his people approaching. Based on their energies, he can tell one of them is definitely Ran, the Ame sect leader, but he can't figure out who the other person is with a similar-sized energy. He knows Wool has always worked alone, so there's no way they could be his allies. We then see it's Mu, the Qingchang sect's greatest warrior, chasing after Ran. As they fight above Wool and Muriang, they notice Wool's dagger. They stop their fight and wonder what it is and what's going on. Young also notices who it is as they run over. Ran asks Young if she knows who that is. Young says, "That's the assassin, Wool." Mu thinks his attention is now on Wool. He can't believe Wool is actually alive. Mu unleashes a loud yell that pierces everyone's hearing. Mu jumps down, excited that everyone's finally gathered. He says to himself, but they don't know Wool has a plan. The chase continues as everyone tries to keep up with Wool. Tired of chasing, Mu asks Wool how long he intends to run. Young can sense something is off. She tells Ran that they need to stop. She knows they must be playing into Wool's hands. But Rand's tunnel vision tells Young to shut up. No one knows because Rand didn't show it, but she was overwhelmed by Mew's martial art. She's annoyed that Wool is acting up right in front of her, and she must not let him live. If Wool survives, it will destroy the Amazek's reputation, which is already on the brink of falling. Although it was only for a second, she was pushed back by Mew. She thinks she needs to kill Wool in order to have a real fight with Mew. Then, suddenly, dozens of arrows come flying out. They are being ambushed by hidden weapons. Muriang questions where they are, as there are traps everywhere. Muriang realizes that they're at the Tang clan estate. Wool led them to the Tang clan village, the village of his pal Sochu. Mew is furious at having been led there. Then Wool appears on the rooftop. Mew and Wool lock eyes, then Ran interrupts and asks Wool what he's up to. Wool says, "Sear this into your eyes. This is my inescapable net trap." Then one of the Black Cloud Corps members tries to sneak up on Wool. As he goes in for an attack, Wool sends hidden daggers his way. The member is able to defend a few but gets too cocky. More hidden daggers fly out, surprising him. He fights off a few more but ultimately, he's no match. Other disciples complain about the hidden weapons, but they believe it should have been expected in a place like the Tang clan village. Wool smirks as he recalls the secrets Sochu informed him of. Sochu also told him there are hidden weapons with extreme venom. The Amazek disciples begin panicking, and Young tries to calm them all down, but it's too late as more hidden arrows come flying out, taking the disciples out. Young warns them not to move recklessly. As one disciple tries running away, she steps on a pressure plate. The plate releases poisonous gas, then out come a swarm of snakes, ready to put an end to this madness. Rand demands Wool to come down. She wants to rip his head off. Wool says, "Wait, the best is saved for last." But not willing to wait is Mew. As snakes approach him, he blows their heads off. He tells Wool he is the one who clipped the Ching Chong Sek's wings. He's ready to make him pay with his life. "Pay with my life?" Wool asks. "Didn't you already make me pay for it 7 years ago?" Wool says he no longer has any debts to pay in this rotten world. All that's left is to collect debts. Wool jumps off the roof and heads right towards Mew, prepared to go face to face with him. Mew tells Wool he's changed much since they last met, everything except for those eyes. Wool tells Mew he's still the same, except for his eyes. Mew draws his sword and tells Wool he won't let him get away this time. Mew draws his Azure Cloud Crimson Dawn slash and prepares the attack for Wool. Wool also prepares for battle and charges right at him. Wool sends his daggers right at Mew, who successfully defends. Mew is impressed and says Wool is no longer just an ordinary assassin. The two battle, and Mew wonders what kind of 7 years it's been for Wool. His techniques are sharper than any martial master within the Sichuan province. Mew is enjoying the challenge. It's been a long time since he's tried so hard to win. Mew stops and says, "All right." He powers up and sends Wool a final threat. "Let's see if you can stop this," he says as Mew rushes in. Wool is prepared. The two clash, and Mew feels something. He knows Wool won't escape unscathed upon receiving this attack. He's sure it will split Wool in half, but as the attack settles, Wool is seen holding Mew's blade with his 2 fingers. Mew is stunned. Wool squeezes his 2 fingers together and begins shattering Mew's blade. Wool is ready to show Mew what happened in that snake pit. Wool activates Jade Destruction, shattering Mew's sword. Mew is distraught. That sword has been passed down from his master for generations and has never even been scratched after a fierce fight. How could this happen? Mew yells in shock, and to everyone's surprise a blade is sent right through his chest, but it wasn't from Wool. Ran has stabbed Mew in the back. Mew turns to Ran, and she tells him that he did great, and now she will take over and finish Wool herself. Mew spits out some blood and stands up. He can't believe Ran struck him from behind.